By definition, a crisis is unpredictable. It's scale broad, the speed fast, and the threat great. We all have crises that we face. Maybe it's just once a year, or perhaps it's only a few times in our career. But these situations make and break leaders. More importantly, they make and break the lives of those we lead and our organisations. It could be a series of redundancies and restructures following an economic downturn, or the hacking of an IT system, or the impact of a natural disaster or accident. There will be a point when you recognise that this situation isn't business as usual, but rather a crisis that needs to be managed carefully and at speed. But what is a crisis for one person may not be a crisis for another. Take paramedics for example. They spend most of their day in situations where people are in crisis. But it's not a crisis for the paramedic. You don't see paramedics running around and screaming and panicking. Instead, you'll see them walk towards the people in crisis, bringing with them a calm efficiency that instills confidence in others. Paramedics are able to lead others through crisis situations through their extensive training and experience. What might be a crisis for me is entirely expected and routine for the paramedic. Just like paramedics, we can train and prepare ourselves for crises. Research into crisis management suggests there are 4 core skills that effective leaders demonstrate: identifying, acting, communicating, and reviewing. As we work through each of these 4 skills, I want you to think about your own crisis leadership. Think about a challenging situation when you were the leader and consider how you demonstrated each of these 4 skills. Skill 1, identifying. Effective leaders identify a crisis early. While others might be continuing as if it's business as usual, the effective leader recognizes that there is a crisis to be managed. They help people to build a shared understanding of the nature of the crisis, including the likely scope and impacts. Leaders can help prepare for a crisis by building the organization's capacity to monitor for opportunities and threats. You then need experienced people and the ability for them to be heard as the crisis emerges. Skill 2, acting. The effective leader in a crisis quickly establishes a framework for making critical decisions. They set things up so they can make strategic decisions while not getting caught up in operational issues. A truly effective leader in a crisis doesn't necessarily have all the answers. Instead, they are clear about the kinds of decisions they need to make and what needs to be passed down to others. The effective leader quickly connects with others in the organization and potentially across different organizations. They then monitor cooperation between these various groups and get involved only where this cooperation breaks down. They quickly isolate the issue from the rest of the organization's operations, a process called decoupling. This means only the relevant parts of the organization focus on the crisis, while the remainder can continue operations as normally as possible. Skill 3, communicating. A key role of a leader during a crisis is meaning making, providing people with a way of making sense of what is happening. Researchers describe this as creating authentic hope and confidence. Now, importantly, it's not false optimism. Instead, it helps people to interpret the crisis and provides confidence about how the leader intends to lead through it. The effective leader recognizes that communication in a crisis is different in terms of pace and context. People need to understand the crisis, the likely consequences, what's being done, and what, if anything, they need to do. Skill 4, reviewing. Once the crisis is over, a leader needs to explain what was done leading up to and during the crisis. This includes what went well and what didn't work. Oftentimes leaders, particularly political leaders, are keen to avoid the what went wrong discussion. Rather than apportioning blame, it's more about preparing the organisation and its people for any future crisis. Every crisis is unique, so leaders need to be comfortable trying new things out and learning on the run. Afterwards, it's important to be able to reflect and learn from the experience and the lessons that have been gained. The effective leader uses a review to enhance resilience in themselves, their people, and the organisation. A crisis is anything but business as usual, but each of us can develop the 4 core skills of identifying, acting, communicating, and reviewing. This helps to build strength, agility, and resilience in our organisations. So how did you go? Which of those 4 skills do you think you could develop further? Why don't you pick that apart, give it a try this week, and let me know how you go.